Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Williamsburg City Council meeting of Thursday, June the 12th. Ms. McKay, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Williams.
Here.
Ms. Ramsey.
Here.
Mayor Pons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Here.
Ms. Kernshire.
Here.
Okay, in our packets, we have the minutes from the council work session of May 5th and council meeting of May 8th. Are there any alterations, corrections, changes? Is there a motion?
So I move that the minutes from May 5th and May 8th be approved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Williams.
Aye.
Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons. Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, don't believe we have any matters of special privilege other than the privilege of being here together. Takes us now to public hearings, and we have one, and that's consideration and action regarding PCR number 25-007, a zoning text amendment to Chapter 21 zoning, Article 7, site plans, and Article 8 of the Chesapeake Bay preservation as outlined in the proposed ordinance 25-06. Ms. Griffin.
And I'm going to handle this today.
Okay.
So several years ago, the Code of Virginia was amended to incorporate into one chapter of regulations the erosion and sediment control and stormwater management of the state. Erosion and sediment control and stormwater management are largely governed by those regulations, and they're incorporated into the city code. One of the requirements that we have to meet is to also incorporate both of those chapters into one chapter in the city code, so those two provisions flow seamlessly together. There were some discrepancies between those regulations, and so this is mainly a housekeeping matter for the purpose of combining our erosion and sediment control and stormwater management articles in Chapter 7 into one article, Article 1, which would include both. The changes to the zoning ordinance are mainly text references, so that the text in the zoning ordinance matches the text in Chapter 7, and the references are correct.
Sounds easy enough. Are there any questions? Questions? Okay, with that, I'll open the public hearing. If anybody would like to come speak to this matter, please come forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to council for conversation, dialogue, motion.
Pretty straightforward.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yep.
So if that's the case, I move that City Council approve PCR 25-007 and adopt Ordinance 25-06 to amend Chapter 21 of the zoning ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, takes us now to reports, and first is our monthly financial statement. Ms. Dameron, welcome
Thank you and good afternoon.
to you.
Okay, our real estate tax, you know, I'm going to look ahead, right, when I'm looking at these numbers. So we have a budget for the year of $19,150,000. And as of today, we've received just a little bit over 19.1 million. So we are at 99.8% of collections, and hopefully we'll collect that remaining 32,000 between now and year end. When we look at personal property tax, if you compare that to some prior reports, you may notice a little different, because in the past we always included our the personal property tax relief money that we get from the state. We've pulled that apart because for formal reporting, we have to report that as intergovernmental income. So while we're showing $1,635,000, we actually are at $1,638,000 in collections. That's on a budget of $2,450,000. That includes the PPTRA. So when I combine our collections with the PPTRA, we're at $2.4 million as well, and just slightly under budget at this point. And
There's another line item in the budget.
there's another line item, and that's the money that we get and we distribute to our taxpayers. We do distribute that, but it comes in as a separate revenue, and we are required to report that separately. So we've started doing that with this presentation as well. And then our business property tax is at 1.6 million, which is about 2.6% increase compared to last year this time, and it's about 5.8% over our budget. And then on our next slide, we have the room tax. Right now, the room tax at almost 3 million is running just slightly under budget by about 0.8%. And meals tax, however, is running at about 3.6% increase over budget. And our 1% sales tax is showing just a slight increase of about 0.7% over last year. And part of that, I think last month we were running a little bit further behind in that. But the receipts for May were a 4.7% increase compared to last May. And so that helped with this year-to-date number. And then our $2 lodging tax, showing about a $5,000 decrease compared to last year, which again is about a 0.7% decrease. So we'll continue to watch that as we move through the summer months. And then our historic sales tax, that's running about a 2% decrease compared to last year this time. And again, I'll just remind you that the groceries and some health care items are not taxed there. And so we typically do see that running a little bit further behind than our normal sales tax, which to me indicates people are backing off slightly from maybe things that they use disposable income for.
Remind me, Ms. Dameron, these are April's results?
It's a 2-month
So-
lag on this, so they're April. So we do have 2 more months. And then this is a really busy slide. I'm not going to spend too much time here, except to say all of our business and professional occupation license are running below budget, with the exception of contracting. Contracting is running over budget by about $192,000. Collectively, we budgeted $3,048,000. Right now, we're at almost $2,900,000. We're running about $162,000 below our budget. And then again, I'll just mention these slides are in the packet. This just, again, shows the B-poll altogether and where we were in relation to prior years. And then, of course, we have our sales tax, meals tax revenue up through 24. We'll be updating that later on for the year of 25. And then our tax revenues. Just a couple of other comments that aren't on the slide. We do have budgeted a transfer of sales tax to the general fund. I've not made that, and I'm not going to make it unless I need to, and then only the amount necessary. Our bank stock taxes are over budget by about $211,000. Our recordation taxes are currently at $253,700. Last May's revenue was at $322,000. So we're right now running $69,000 less than last year. We'll see what happens in June. Other than that, general fund expenditures are at 88.4% of budget. Compared to last May, that was 87.5% of budget. So we're running within our budget. And in the utility fund, both the revenues and expenditures are trending well. Both are in line with the budget as well as in line with last year. And that concludes my remark. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Dameron. Just one question, going back to the B-poll on contracting. We attribute that to all the work that's being done at William & Mary?
Yes, a lot of it is, and I don't have a list, but we can have that for next time. That one sometimes is hard to budget as well, because it depends on the timing of when projects move forward.
It just strikes me that there isn't a whole lot of projects other than
Right.
what Mary's doing, and I guess some at Columbia.
Well, and we had last year our receipts were stronger and we had a higher budget, but we had more projects coming online.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Dameron?
Ms. Dameron, I have a question. It's not based on this report, but just recently seeing both the candidates for governor are starting to indicate that they're going to push for the elimination of the personal property on vehicles again. Do you have an idea what that means to the city?
For elimination, you mean on the tax itself or on the, yeah, for the city on vehicles? Well, there are other things mixed in that, but the majority of our personal property tax, non-business, is vehicles. So it would be that would be a big impact and a hard revenue. I don't know what the plans are to make up that.
Yeah, and I know
Stream.
a lot has to happen before that's taken place, but both seem to have an interest in pushing forward with that.
Well, that would be concerning.
Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
No questions?
No questions, thank you.
It's always interesting to see state-level politicians make promises that don't affect the state's budget, it only affects the local budgets, so. I digress. Okay, takes us to monthly departmental operating report. Mr. Trivett, who do we have? I see Mr. Chief Snyder.
Going to be the fire department to talk to us about the RAVE software.
Okay, welcome, sir.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor Pons, Vice Mayor Dent, and members of City Council. We want to take an opportunity to talk about our RAVE mobile alert mass notification system. The reason it's timely is that just last month we went ahead and transitioned from the previous software vendor that we've used for many years, which was Everbridge, and we moved to RAVE. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the benefits of us moving to RAVE and some of the community outreach that specifically Communications Director Nicole Trifoni has been doing. And I wanted to share that the Safety Committee, probably about in July of 23, started the conversation of looking at some other alternatives for our mass notification system because we were looking to expand specific functions within the city, such as panic buttons and some other ways to notify employees of specific incidents that may be impacting city facilities, but obviously also an opportunity to figure out a software that not only is able to accommodate that, but also continues to meet our mass notification needs for the city as well. So again, RAVE is a mass notification software. We transitioned to it just last month on May 15th. That was important because our contract was expiring with Everbridge a few days after that. So we put a team together, and Chief Information Officer Mark Barham and Communications Director Nicole Trifoni deserve the lion's share of all the credit for us being able to meet that deadline and where we are today. They've done all the heavy lifting. I just happen to be up here talking about it, so they deserve all the credit. So we did transition that to the May 15th of 2025, and we're going to continue to do some additional implementation processes over the next couple of months. As you're aware, and the public is aware, a mass notification system is simply a big term that talks about many ways to get notifications or messages to our community. This is a slide that just indicates some of those things, such as a desktop screen, which we're going to talk about. We won't talk about today, but it's one of the things Mark is working on for notification of city employees in their office space. In the event that we had an incident at a city facility, it would be able to send a notification to a person's desktop, and Mark is currently working on that, and that's one of the phases that we'll talk about later in the slides. And some of the other ways, some social media accounts, obviously voice calling and text messaging, so on and so forth. And RAVE also has a mobile feature to it that Mark is, again, currently working on that we'll be able to roll out after we work through some of the internal mechanisms that we need to kind of finalize. So again, Everbridge to RAVE, we transitioned it to last month. We're saving about $30,000 a year for that. And the best part about that is not just about the cost savings, but the added functionality that RAVE offers. So really excited about that. Because our 911 center utilizes a Motorola computer automated dispatch, the CAD. It also integrates into that because RAVE is a Motorola system, is a Motorola software as well. So that allows our 911 center to be able to send messages on behalf of the city in the event that we were unable to, which is another added benefit of us transitioning to RAVE. Again, it expands the capability of our mass notification processes, such as some of the things that we've talked about, which is that phase 2 of employee notification. And the best part is that Nicole and Mark worked really hard that everybody, specifically our citizens who are already signed up for Everbridge, were automatically rolled over into Rave instead of them having to go back in, set up new accounts, and those types of things. So we were really tried to make this as a seamless transition as possible for our city residents and for everybody who are subscribers to our previous system of Everbridge. This is an interesting slide here. So I was doing some test messaging on my phone, and really have Rave broken down into two different types of messaging capability. One is non-emergency, which as you can see is that number to the left, 757-520-0703, and then the emergency number, which comes from short codes. The interesting piece about this short codes is that that's not unique to the city of Williamsburg. Those short codes are used by Rave in general. So if you look at that right side of the screen, you're going to see a tribe alert. So William and Mary also uses the Rave mass notification system, as does Colonial Williamsburg. So in the event that we have subscribers within our community who is set up for William and Mary tribe alerts and also Williamsburg Rave alerts, it's going to come from the same number, and that's why you see where it says Williamsburg Alert. We have developed so people know it's a Williamsburg Alert, and if you look just that one message above, it says Tribe Alert. So that may be a little bit of confusing for some folks when they come in from the same short code, and we've tried to address that, which I'll show on one of the slides here soon. But folks should know that they could get a William and Mary Tribe alert and a Williamsburg alert, and the differentiation is going to be those actually the way it's spelled out on that text message on your screen, because Rave has some common short codes that they use for emergency numbers. How to sign up. Nicole set up the WilliamsburgVA.gov alerts, and you can see at the top of the screen, it's not easily seen. There's two buttons. One's is a sign up to Rave, and the other one's a create a contact card. And that create the contact card essentially uses that 757-220 number for the non-emergency and the short codes, puts them together, so in the event that you get a message from any of those, it automatically populates as a Rave mobile alert. And so that is a nice feature. I signed up to that, and that's why if you saw, you may not be able to see, it doesn't show up there because I hadn't signed up for it yet. Then obviously our citizens can sign up if they haven't previously to do that with our new Rave alert. We also created some opt-in messaging for weather and then for public safety, and we know that Nicole has done a great job in communicating to the public because there were two opt-in features that we didn't have with Everbridge, and we've already seen those opt-in subscribers populate, which has been really good. That's letting us know that the community is reading that and are able to opt in on those types of things. The last slide is just talking about the phase implementation. We've already talked about the rollout of the mass notification system. Obviously, we didn't want to transition away from from Everbridge to Rave until we had the capability to send those basic notifications to the community, which we've been able to accomplish. And now phase 2 is Mark and his team are working on the city staff computer notifications. That's a snapshot of what the mobile app looks like, where the panic buttons will be on city phones. And again, we're still internally working through what that's going to look like and the mechanism for that. And then again, that mobile panic button, which we're showing. So some additional things that we're going to be able to implement with Rave, which is really exciting to, again, add capability and functionality for the city as a whole. And that's really a high-level view of that transition from Everbridge to Rave. Again, just want to acknowledge Nicole and Mark for all their hard work on it. If you have any specific questions that I will attempt to answer, but if you have technical questions, those who are smarter than I, such as Nicole and Mark, may have to come up and help me out. So that's all that I have.
Well, thank you, Chief. I guess high level, I'm glad to see that we were able to find something that's less expensive but delivers more service.
Absolutely.
You were showing the app and the function in the last. Is that only available to city employees, or is that something the app will be available to city residents as well?
Mark, I'm going to say right now that our plan is only city employees, yeah. And we're still working through that because we have to work through city phones versus personal phones, and those are discussions that we have to have at the E-team level to figure out the best way to deploy that. But the app itself will be a city employee-focused app.
Perfect. Okay, good. Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. One question I know in Everbridge there were parameters. You could set up certain parameters. Do we as subscribers need to go in and change parameters in the new system?
It should have all been carried over.
over.
It should have all
Okay.
been carried over. Certainly, we would encourage folks to log in and to look at that to make sure your parameters are correct. The biggest parameter that we often deal with, particularly Nicole and I, are the weather parameters. As you can probably remember, frost advisories.
Frost warning.
That's
at 2
exactly
o'clock in the
right.
morning.
So all of those should have been moved over. In the event that they're not, we certainly would encourage folks to get in their profile and make sure it's set up correctly. But the implementation process, that transition was to bring all of that over.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
It's a great question.
Thank you. So my question has to do with signing up. Did Everbridge have the same process that you had to sign up in order to be part of it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I got an Everbridge notification one time and I have no memory of signing up for it, but I must have. I did not. So I think what I'm getting at here is just making sure that people know that they have to do this.
Yes.
And because, to be honest, I would not have thought that necessarily. So I think, thanks to Nicole for everything you're doing to making sure that it's easy for people to understand that this is something that, even if you think you may have been signed up for Everbridge or not, you want to check to make sure that you are signed up for this, because obviously we don't want anyone who is unable to get mass notification when that would be helpful. And so I guess to that end, especially as we're going through a transition period and trying to get people to sign up, what about people who get kind of lost in the shuffle or who don't have a mass notification on their app? Like, what are sort of our city backstops, if you will, in that kind of circumstance?
So in the event that we need to get messaging out to the public,
Yeah.
there would be a couple of different ways depending upon what the parameters are. So outside of just signing up, there also is a feature, it uses a phone directory, so phones, landline phones in the
Okay.
city as well.
Okay.
And so we were able to target those. We can either do that as a city as a whole,
Okay.
so businesses and those types of phones who may have access, and so then we can geo-target those specific areas. So even if you didn't have a cell phone, you didn't subscribe, we can still draw from our users, not even users, but folks who have numbers that exist within the city.
Okay, that's helpful to know that there is something that makes sure that, truly what we want is for the most people to know that something is happening as possible, even if they haven't had the chance yet to sign up. So again, thanks for everything that you're doing to get this out there and to make sure that people get signed up. So thank you.
And the other thing to add, Ms. Kernshire, is also, which I'll be coming to you in a few minutes about iPaws. iPaws also offers that capability where you don't have to subscribe. We would only use that in a significant emergency, such as, God forbid, Lake Matoaka Dam is getting ready to fail. We would do something like of that nature. So that is not required for you to subscribe. So those immediate life-threatening, we have the iPaws capability that will hit everybody that's within a geo-fence area of immediate danger.
All right, thank you.
So in the past, I would get a message left on my landline. So I assume the same would be the case with this
It would be.
computer message.
It would be that way, absolutely. And so the other thing would be, we can prioritize. So obviously, if your mobile phone is your primary function, or if your email, then so on and so forth, or a landline phone. But it would be very similar to your experience with Everbridge. Yes, ma'am.
And in addition to weather alerts, what would be like sort of second next that might be notifications sent out to the public?
So for us, for weather alerts, we are partnered with NOAA. So anything that comes out of the National Weather Service is automatically goes through RAVE that we don't have to do. So it's an automatically
Okay.
generated message. So back to Vice Mayor Dent's question about if I subscribe to certain things, and a lot of folks will subscribe to the National Weather Alerts, then you can go down and you can actually select which ones you want. It could be a frost advisory, things of more minimal nature, or it could be anything that's a warning, tornado warning, hurricane warning, or it could be watches, and so on and so forth. So the subscribers have the ability to really customize what alerts they want. And again, that is automatically driven through RAVE, just like it was in Everbridge, Ms. Ramsey. So we don't have to actually send those out. It's automatically done on behalf of the folks who subscribe to those notifications.
But like if there's let's say a huge traffic accident on the interstate and it backs up and, exit and entry ramps are closed, is that something that might be
We
sent
would
out?
have, yeah, we could. We would send that out. If we thought we were having significant impacts to the city, obviously we would work with Nicole and Mr. Tribbett to figure out what messaging we want to get out there. And that would absolutely be a capability that we'd be able to do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for reviewing this information with us. I had two questions. My first one is in regards to the short codes. Earlier, you mentioned that the short codes might overlap with William and Mary tribe alerts.
Yep.
Will this also occur with alerts sent from Colonial Williamsburg as well?
So we've not really seen any Colonial Williamsburg alerts. I think it's more internal for them and for their employees. So we talked through that as well, Ms. Williams. And so If they did, it would have some type of CW alert or Colonial Williamsburg alert. However, they have started that initial message. But I don't, to our knowledge, we have not seen them use Rave for a public alerting network. I think it's only internal. But if they did, it would also fall under the similar things of what you're seeing on the screen right there.
Makes sense, thank you.
yeah.
My second question is in regards to the implementation process. So earlier you mentioned that it's like a phased process. What does the timeline for this look like?
I would have to ask Mark Barm to either come up or whisper some wisdom in my ear.
So right now, there's 2 phases left, 2 and 3. The first phase is the take over the computer screen. We sent out a notification. There's something going on. We really want to get in front of people. That should be done within the next month. We're waiting on them and parts of the installation process so that we can then use automated software to push that out to all city computers. The last piece, the mobile app, we're working through some processes internally in terms of city-issued cell phones versus personally owned cell phones and who needs to be in there and all that. That process is going to take a little bit longer probably, but no more than a couple months and we'll be ready to go on all that.
Wow, thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief, and Mr. Barham. I guess I would encourage everybody to go to the city website, which is williamsburgva.gov/alerts, is that correct? And sign up if you haven't already. I know that I enjoy getting alerts, and I know everybody else will as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Mr. City Manager, any report?
Not today.
Ms. Shelton?
Nothing now.
Leads now to open forum, and I have a number of speakers cards, and I'll first go with Mr. Dennis Hines. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good to see you again, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice President, and council members.
You'll just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Dennis Hines. I'm here with my wife Caroline, and we're at 119 Indian Springs Road.
Thank you.
We're just celebrating our year anniversary as part of the community and neighborhood, and we're delighted to be here. We love Indian Springs, and for many reasons. This is my next door neighbor. I think you've all seen this. But this is what we are, this is not a one-off either. These are recurring issues that are happening in our lovely neighborhood. And in fact, as you most likely know, I'm not opposed to renters in general, but renters whoever's the renter, if the landlord is not held accountable for the behavior in the household, that is a major issue. And this is what I know that we have many existing codes and laws in place for public gatherings, behavior, conduct, parking, unrelated occupancy, noise. And it's not just the decibel level, that has to be within certain time parameter, because quite often this happens during the day, and when it's constant, it's just, imagine if this was your next door neighbor. Put yourself in that place. And the students are rotating. It's a revolving door. We all know that. So we're asking for your assistance to help us in our look to keep our neighborhood intact. It's historic, it's beautiful, it's well-known. It's a threshold to Williamsburg. There's also, I want to point out too that, as the students rotate out, they leave a huge mess. These yards are unkempt and they're left that way for weeks. So there must be something in place to check that, to check the landlords. There has to be a significant penalty to the landlord, which I just don't see happening. And we are asking for your assistance to enforce the codes that are in place so that we can maintain the integrity and the character of our beautiful neighborhood. And I thank you very much for.
Thank you, Mr. Hines. Next speaker's card I have is Mr. Henry Hart. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see you again, and thanks for letting me speak. When Dennis was talking, I thought I could add some details about the house next to him a number of years before he moved in. There was an actual dump in the backyard. Apparently, for years, the students renting there would just throw things over a backyard fence. A friend of mine took pictures, sent the pictures to someone. Finally, it was cleared up, and I remember vividly there was a gigantic mound of junk on the front lawn. There were old beer kegs, old mattresses, old bicycles, broken furniture, God knows what else. So I know what Dennis is up again. This morning I decided to read Williamsburg's comprehensive plan. And I'm sorry to say I did not read the entire comprehensive plan, but I read part of the section that pertained to neighborhoods. And this is what I read. I'm sure you're familiar with it. Williamsburg is a city of neighborhoods, which range from large lot single family to higher density multifamily neighborhoods. Strong, healthy neighborhoods are critical to city residents' quality of life. And the city is committed to preserving and enhancing them. The plan's goal for neighborhoods is to, quote, maintain and enhance the quality of the city's residential neighborhoods and encourage the provision of affordable housing for those living and working in the city. By now, you know about the many problems in the Indian Springs neighborhood caused by ever-increasing numbers of houses bought by William and Mary parents or investors and rented to 4 or 5 students. And you know we're upset about Michael Field's plan to build 2 student rental houses behind the Hornsby House. And I think I mentioned the Hornsby House, even though it's empty, it has already been used to have huge disruptive parties. One night, there were students walking up our driveway to the Hornsby House. There were students parking in front of our driveway. The noise got worse and worse. The police had to call. I had to get up at 6 o'clock the next morning to talk to a group of students at a breakfast. It was hard to get any sleep when we were dealing with the police and all the mayhem. So I'm a professor who has lived close to the college for almost 40 years, so I've watched single-family homes. As I said the other day, single-family homes in residential neighborhoods fall like dominoes. They get turned into student rentals, and then the quality of life for permanent residents suffers as a result. It's easy to talk the talk about maintaining and enhancing the quality of the city's residential neighborhoods. But after all the years of talk, my Indian Springs neighbors and I feel it's time, as they say, to walk the walk. It's time to take effective action to achieve the goals laid out in Williamsburg's comprehensive plan. And I think from listening to my neighbors, you know that we are more than willing to work with you to achieve those goals. We look forward to it. So thanks again for listening to me.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Mr. Robert Wilson. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Wilson at 22 The Palisades. I've previously provided you with a report dated June 4th entitled Analysis and Evaluation of Building a New Library Facility versus Renovating the Existing Facility, together with a PowerPoint presentation summarizing this report. My request to use the PowerPoint presentation to accompany my remarks today was denied. I've provided a copy of both to the clerk of the council to be made part of the record of the meeting, and the public can also access both reports at williamsburgindependent.com. During my research, I found the debate regarding building a library versus renovating the existing facility is marred by many myths and incorrect information. The summary of my report is that the new library project as currently conceived should be terminated and a new plan developed for the following reasons. James City County and York County have declined to participate in the cost of building a new library in the city of Williamsburg. James City County has recently approved building a new library facility in James City County, only 3.5 miles away from the current Williamsburg facility. Residents of James City County represented about 74% of the patrons of our current library, and with the completion of their own library, most of these will use the new library in the James City County location. The population of the city of Williamsburg is about 10,000 persons, excluding William Mary students who have their own campus library. There are only about 7,800 residents with library cards, and there are only 8,800 physical visits to the library by Williamsburg residents. For a community our size, the state's guidelines for an exemplary facility would be about 10,000 square feet. The current new library project is for 50,000 square feet and is grossly oversized for the Williamsburg community. The Library Board is advocating for both new libraries, not because of growth in the city of Williamsburg, but because of growth in James City County. It doesn't make sense for the residents of Williamsburg to build and pay for a library this size for James City County. Currently, the city of Williamsburg shares the annual operating cost of the library system with James City County and York County. Dissatisfied with the escalating annual cost of the current system and frightened by the potential increased operating cost of two new libraries, York County has given their 2-year notice to terminate their participation. It will take James City County 3 years to build their new library, so they are currently exposed if Williamsburg gives 2 years' notice to terminate. So currently, they support remaining in the system. Once their new library is completed, they can terminate their participation and save millions of dollars supporting the Williamsburg Library. This increased cost plus the cost of a new library would be unsustainable for the city. The estimated cost of building the current library concept would exceed $40 million. The $40 million included in the capital plan if the parking option is included. Plus, the city would have to pay the additional annual operating cost of 2 new libraries. Borrowing the $40 million over 10 years would add $9 million in interest, and the combined increased cost over the next 10 years for the new libraries and the increased operating costs would exceed $64 million. The impact on real estate taxes would mean about a 30% increase in current real estate tax rate, on which the average is an extra $800 a year per resident. Colonial Williamsburg would pay almost $7 million over the 10 years, and our commercial businesses would pay over $14 million. The option of renovating the existing facility was never originally considered as an option. Proponents of the new library have repeatedly represented that the architect's assessment was that there was too little difference in a renovation versus new construction. This is not true. The option represented as a renovation was a partial renovation and new construction of additional 25,000 square feet. Both the architectural's assessment of $200 a square feet for a renovation and my own calculations estimate that a major renovation of the existing facility would cost between $8 and $10 million. Obviously, this is much less than $30 to $40 million of the proposed new library. The library board said the existing library was aged and deteriorated. That's not what the architect's assessment report said. It said the structure was sound and systems good to excellent condition. Proponents have represented that roof leaks can't be fixed. Another incorrect representation. Roof restoration is a commonplace project to fix such leaks, and quite frankly should have been done years ago. The structural bookshelves may be the most misrepresented feature of the entire facility. They are simply built-in bookshelves where the first level supports the mezzanine level shelves. No, not the roof. The current shelves are functional, serve their intended purpose, and the aisle widths exceed ADA guidelines and are the same as in the Norge Library. The objection raised by the architects is they would not allow the addition of a full second floor space, which is now not needed with the prospective James City Library. Building a new library 50,000 square feet for a community of 10,000 is not sustainable or wise. Most comments on the library's Facebook page support keeping the existing facility. Let's fix those deficiencies in the current building and relook at options, future options, once the local and national uncertainties are more settled. Thank you for your attention.
Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Suzanne Livingston. afternoon.
Thank you again for this opportunity to speak. My name is Susanna Livingston. I'm at 309 Indian Springs Road. My husband and I have lived there since 1997, and we raised our kids there. I'd like to take just a couple minutes, I'll be very brief, to state that we and many of our neighbors are strongly opposed to the commercial development that's been proposed for Indian Springs Road. By the way, it strikes us as ironic, to say the least, that the proposed structures are being referred to as single-family homes or single-family residences. I think we all know by now that that is almost certainly not what they're going to be. We believe that a high concentration of purpose-built student housing will threaten the character, in the different senses of that word, the character of an old neighborhood that's been home to young families, William & Mary employees, and retirees for almost 100 years. We also believe, with abundant evidence, that the addition of at least 12 students in 3 adjacent lots, so essentially a small campus on Indian Springs Road, will mean more cars parked on an already dangerous bend in the road, more noise and large unpermitted parties, and more of the ugly and aggressive drunken behavior that unfortunately we've already experienced in the neighborhood. We strongly urge the city to reject in its current form the commercial development on the former Hornsby property on Indian Springs Road. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Lindsay Barna? Welcome.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak today, and thank you for all of you for serving the city. Today, I actually want to discuss a particularly vulnerable population, and honestly, that is the college students in our community. You've heard from those living in the neighborhoods adjacent to the college about the corporate takeover of the housing in the neighborhoods. In our neighborhood, as you just heard from one of my neighbors, a corporate owner has taken over 3 properties, 1 existing house and 2 additional high-density rental properties that will look like single-family dwellings that they plan to build. Well, I have heard for years that the city has no power or perhaps no interest in curbing the LLCs and corporations from taking over our neighborhoods. I have another concern, and honestly, that is for my students. You see, I teach at the college, and because I was a lawyer and used to work closely with legal aid, they come to me with issues and questions. And honestly, they're scared to confront their landlords, and they're scared to go to court. You may wonder why that is, but that's because they know housing is limited and they fear becoming homeless and having to figure out how to go to college without housing. So I'm asking you, as the leadership of the city, to figure out a way to help protect them. So I want to tell you a few stories that I have heard this year, and especially in the fall. I will start with the process of finding housing. A number of students have told me similar stories. They arrive at a house to tour it to see if they want to rent it for the next year. When they arrive, they are told by either the landlord or the management company that greets them that the price that was listed, which could be well over $1,000 per bedroom, is no longer valid, and are asked what else the students can offer the landlord. While most times they're looking for money, I have real concerns about this predatory practice that I have heard about. Once in the houses, they are confronted with rats, roaches, asbestos exposure, and I've even heard of open sewage running through the crawl spaces. I've heard about these conditions in multiple addresses all around the city, or all around the area surrounding the college. And I've heard about this for many years, so it's not a new issue, but it is an issue that I think students are afraid to talk about. Further, when student tenants are trying to seek help, they're taken further advantage of. One student in my senior seminar this past spring, they had a sewage backup in their basement, and they called their management company. Well, the management company charged them $500 to come out and look at the plumbing. They were told, oh, you put too much toilet paper in the toilet. We know around here, many of the older neighborhoods experience these issues. That's not what happened. I told the student, please call the city. The city is really helpful. The city was helpful to the student, but the landlord continued to want to charge these students living in this rental house $500 every single time someone came out instead of actually clearing the sewer line. How is a student supposed to know to call the city? So I'm just pointing out the different vulnerabilities. The Neighborhood Balance Committee gave suggestions and solutions to try to alleviate some of these issues, but little has been implemented at this time. I fear that further corporate ownership by LLCs and out-of-town landlords will only exacerbate these issues and make them more prevalent. I think that many of us do not view students as a particularly vulnerable population, but they are. They are young, they're living on their own for the first time, and they are being taken advantage of in our city. While I have heard of inconveniences and other just small issues in the large apartment complexes, I have never heard stories like these underhanded, predatory, and disgusting practices that the students experience by these LLCs or landlords in these single-family dwellings in the neighborhoods adjacent to the college. I would ask that you please consider regulations to ensure that the properties are kept up, fit the ARB rules, are habitable, safe, and fit the city comprehensive plan. The solution is not to pack more students into these unsafe, unsuitable houses. The solution has to be elsewhere, and I think that it's on us as a city to try to find that. Since I have 48 more seconds, I'm just going to add, in particular to the Fields development, at this time, the community's access has been blocked to our community space, and my children who have been going to the swings there for 11 years are no longer able to access the park safely. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Diane Jacobson, I believe. Welcome.
Thank you for the time. My name is Diane Jacobson, 139 Indian Springs Road. I have two sections that I'd like to cover. The first section is my personal story about Indian Springs. 12 years ago, our daughter got accepted to William & Mary. She was thrilled. We were very happy for her. When we kept coming down here, we fell in love with the city, Colonial Williamsburg, and the college. She loves William & Mary to this day. So when she was a freshman, we ended up saying, let's buy an early retirement home. We loved Indian Springs. We bought 139. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Love the city of Williamsburg. Colonial Williamsburg, walk my dogs almost every day in CW. We are supporters of CW, my husband and I. We also love William & Mary. My daughter said it was the best years of her life so far. She loves it here. We support the School of Arts and Sciences at William & Mary. We go to many functions on campus. We know how lucky we are. I know some of my neighbors. We know we're lucky. We can walk right across the street, go to the new music school, go to the new Muscarelli. It's a blessing. Love the students, friends with many of them. When I'm walking my dogs, they want to pet the dogs. Stop, you know, it's finals week. You need some stress relief, pet Leo and Remy. It's just great. We have retirees, professors, young families. Never had a particular problem with the parties. Kids will party. We understand that. They're college kids. However, the big party, this one, which you're going to see again, was really out of control. And as it is, it's congested, so we all know, all the neighbors, when you're driving out or in, we all are courteous. Kids have their earbuds in, they might not hear us. There could be a kid on a bike. We often stop for each other. Not a problem. That day, you could not pass the roads. It was particularly crowded. There were kids walking around. It was a lot. That was the worst I've ever seen in my 10 years. And I think that with the possibility of adding 2 new houses, rental houses on the Hornsby lot, and also using the original Hornsby house for student renting, will congest the problem. There'll be 3 houses in a row. We'll have more of the parties, and just the whole character of the neighborhood will be greatly affected. And I think we all feel like we're at a juncture with this, because it's 3 houses in a row. That's quite a lot of new students possibly coming in. So I think I was making my notes today. I said, what are we as a town, as a neighborhood, as a community, what are we looking for the vision of our future? Do we want to continue along this road? I also understand William & Mary is under pressure. They want to grow, understandable. They don't have enough space. to my mind, there should be a dialogue going on between the neighborhoods, the town council, the college. Instead of just saying, well, it'll just be what it is. What is our vision as a community? I'm not really seeing that, and we are greatly, greatly concerned. The second part of what I want to say will be brief. It's the picture again. This is safety issues and legal ramifications.
Ms. Jacobs, you stay at the microphone. Yeah, that way everybody can hear.
I'm sorry. When Missy showed me this picture, I was shocked, and the first thing I thought, just call me paranoid, what if one of those, I'm going to call children, fell off the roof? Can't get your emergency vehicles in because the neighborhood's so crowded. There's kids walking around. It was mayhem. No, emergency vehicles are called. They can't get access right away. We're going to have several lawsuits. The town, the police, the college, the landlords, the fraternity. It's something that I think as a community we don't really want to think about, but I feel like we really need to have a dialogue about this. We don't want that. No one in this room wants something like that. So please, please consider, to us it's personal, it's in our neighborhood, but I think this is a problem that is happening around the town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker's card I have is Ms. Sabrina Fairbanks. Welcome.
Hi there. Good afternoon, Council. Sabrina Fairbanks. At the risk of my own life, I'm a landlord at 201 Carey Street, a street over from many of the residents who are speaking today. And I was going to talk about the $600,000 that I don't think we should spend on a comprehensive plan, since we've got really well-educated, great staff who could do that. But as I watched the work session on Monday, I decided I was going to pivot because I want to practice what I preach about not being an NIMBY. And while I don't own rentals or live on Indian Springs, this is happening everywhere in the city. I say everywhere, but near the college in the city. And I personally have been working on some of these problems since 2010, 2011. And it was discouraging to me to hear the Indian Springs neighbors talking about the trash and the parking and occupancy problems and things that really we've been talking about for so long, and as previous people have mentioned, just haven't been solved. So the first thing I wanted that I think you see here, and this has been brought up before, with regard to parking, I don't think we're going to get rid of rentals in the city. But I do agree that we need to make it more expensive, and we need to have landlords be more responsible and pay more money to address these problems. So for instance, the City of Richmond already has a parking fee and form, as you see, for renters versus property owners. So this is a way to say who is supposed to be parked at this property, what do they drive, and the landlord signs off on it. So there is some responsibility, and the landlord can be held accountable when there's 10 extra cars there, 24/7. This I thought was awfully low, $25 for a decal. But it's embarrassing when my tenants come to town and I say, you got to go get a decal. Well, how much is it? $5. I mean, this is embarrassing. We've been complaining about how much money the city is spending, and we're only charging $5 for a decal. I think it would be a great, gesture of goodwill to not have property taxpayers maybe pay that. But a decal at William and Mary is $375, versus $5. It's no wonder that they're, abusing parking in the city. Same with the fines. Years ago, council raised the fines on decal streets to 25, then second offense 50, then 75, from then on. I did a FOIA request one year, and I didn't see any escalated fines on there. So I don't know what happened to that. And a decal fine at the college is $197, versus $25. We need to make it more expensive to break the rules. And many of these rules are being broken at rentals. And I will say, I'll just call them renters, not even students. I'll say younger renters, older renters. So I hope that my neighbor friends behind me know that some of these problem landlords and renters are a problem to other renters and other landlords. And they're right to be worried about trash. I'm going to get rid of the recycling bins this year, starting August 1, because you can't get a group of renters, I don't know why, they just won't do the recycling correctly. So then the recycling truck comes, they see all the plastic bags hanging out, and they won't pick it up. So it sits there forever, and it never gets transferred to a trash can where it could get picked up. And they're right about it. I've been complaining for years about the parties and the trash that never gets picked up, the hedges and shrubbery that never gets trimmed, and the Griffin Avenue, Carey Street area, we now have rats. So the rats are there, one street over. And so they're right to be worried about trash. And then I better hurry. I want to talk to you about the liability insurance. As a landlord, I don't want to see this either, because when one of these students falls off and breaks his or her neck, I'm getting sued. And I've been researching this, and I'll tell you, the college needs to be worried about this, and the city needs to be worried about it, because everybody's getting sued. It's none of this, well, it's not a sanctioned fraternity house, so we're not responsible. They are putting out the wide net in these lawsuits when these kids get hurt. And the last thing is, with all the emergency services, we have precious few police officers, and I really hope that you could look at, if somebody's got to come to my rental property every weekend to deal with parties and drunkenness, the landlord should be paying for those emergency services rather than just be part of my taxes. I don't think I should have to pay for that, or other landlords who are doing a good job.
Thank you, Ms. Fairbanks. Okay, so that concludes my speaker's cards, but if somebody else would like to come forward that hasn't spoken yet, welcome. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Missy Carr, 316 Indian Springs Road. You've heard our issues over and over again. You've seen the now infamous photograph. This is just one house, one party. There have been, I have other pictures, other parties, other houses. It's not just this one. I'll briefly recap. The unsightly decline of former family homes that go student rental, alcohol-infused parties, live bands, underage drinking, vomit, urination in our yards, police called over and over. It bears repeating. We shared with you the results of our recent parking experiment that demonstrated the hazardous situation that will occur if the field development is approved. We already have way too many cars from all the other rentals. Our streets are curved and narrow. I've said the trash truck has a hard time every week. It is unsettling to realize that emergency vehicles will also have a very difficult time. We are losing a large number of Williamsburg residents because of this situation. Homeowners are fed up with the lack of action and the continuing decline. I posed this question here on Monday. You recently discussed a program to retain city businesses. What about retaining city residents, permanent, tax-paying, home-owning city residents? If we do not want our Williamsburg neighborhoods to become all student rentals, then consider some ideas which have been implemented in other college towns to protect the integrity of their historic neighborhoods. Encourage the college to increase their student living spaces. Don't allow their problem to become our problem. Encourage the building of dedicated student units on or near campus rather than allowing landlords to take over our neighborhoods. Restrict the number of student rentals allowed in residential zones. This will encourage the retention of home ownership. Return to the three-person rule that we used to have. Do not allow the building of any new houses for the sole purpose of student rentals in an existing residential neighborhood. Adopt separate regulations for student rental properties to help combat the problems that are unique to these rentals. Implement a minimum distance requirement for student rentals. This would help ensure that rentals cannot achieve a tipping point in any one neighborhood. The field development would be 3 separate structures, side by side, all student rental. And finally, simply enforce the codes that are already on your books. Noise ordinances, rules against large alcohol-infused gatherings, over-occupancy, illegal conversions, such as garages and screen porches turned into bedrooms. We've all seen it. Poorly maintained and unsafe houses, parking issues. And this last one incorporates it all. As your mission statement reads, protect the character of our neighborhoods. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Carr, I see you getting ready. Welcome, sir. Just state your name and address, please.
Bill Carr, 316 Indian Springs Road. Monday, I did not speak well, and I need to clean up a couple of things I said or didn't say. So regarding the party permit, it only applies to any outdoor gathering of 20 people, 20 adults or more. So 20 adults outdoors, okay? And when you use the 150 number, that is if the party is going to be more than 149, i.e. 150, then check a box so the city knows that this is going to be a humdinger, a big party. We need to be prepared. The beauty of the party permit is required 10 days in advance. Everyone knows and everyone can be prepared, EMS, the police, and then they can react accordingly. Now, for some new things for you to consider. Number one, consider changing the minimum size for a 4-person unrelated people rental from 2,000 square feet to 2,500, maybe 3,000. 3,000 might not be right, but something more than 2,000 square feet. A. B. Do not allow any shared parking arrangements. The only reason why this new construction, the field construction development is requesting shared parking is because if each unit had its own, it wouldn't work. So why are we going to allow something that is going to exacerbate the population, the parking, all the crowding, the streets and everything? We ought to not allow shared parking arrangements. Now this is the big one, and this is new. In my opinion, anyone that rents, anyone, should have a provision in his or her lease that addresses the sexual predator or sexual offender. The states have lists of individuals who have been deemed, and I might not have this exactly right for the lawyer, but either predator or offender. And I think the landlord should do the check and then notify the adjacent property owners if he or she gets a hit on this list. Indian Springs has young families. We have a common area. They're going to have to walk up an easement right beside these new houses if they're allowed, and we don't know who's in there. And I'd hate to see Rachel and David Trissler or Barrett and Andrew Crawford, their kids, anything to ever happen to them. So I don't know how it's done now, but this has been brought to my attention, and I really think we ought to hone in on this and look into make this a requirement of renting. Maybe have it on your Rent Ready program too, okay? This is some news for you that you may not know. I got a minute and 30 seconds. I am told that the apartments, Ludwell Apartments, that the college has rented for all, in mass for all these years, that's not the agreement going forward, and such that the ownership may, and again, I don't have firsthand knowledge of this, but the management may open it up to the public renting there. If that were the case, then 1 student, 2 students, or 35 students may be displaced, heretofore historically living in Ludwell. If that were to happen, where are these individuals going to go? They're going to put more pressure on these neighborhoods that are close to the college. So just bearing that in mind, the pressure is going to continue to build and build with different situations going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the open forum and we'll move on. I don't believe we have any, any unfinished business. Takes us to new business. First is consideration and action regarding bids for the removal and disposal of residuals from the lagoons at the City of Williamsburg Water Filtration Plant. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of City Council. We have lagoons out at our water treatment plant that we utilize when we wash filters in the basins to remove the sediment that accumulates through the treatment process. And how they work is over time, the water will evaporate, leaving a sludge or mud behind, and from time to time, we need to have that sludge removed. This contract is for the removal and disposal of those residuals from one of the 2 lagoons. Of the 3 bids the city received, the lowest responsive bidder was Stage 3 Separation LLC with a bid of $361,075. Despite having put this out to bid multiple times, this bid still exceeds the budget for this project of $238,358. We have contingency funds within the utility budget for circumstances like these, so we would withdraw $98,804 from this fiscal year's contingency line and $23,911 from fiscal 26 water and sewer contingency line to cover the overage on the cost of the project. Staff recommends that the City Council award the bid and authorize the city manager to execute the contract for the removal and disposal of the residuals at the water treatment plant.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. How often do we have to do this? I think you said time to time.
Should be every 10 years.
And we'll do both of these with this current bid, or is it just one?
Unfortunately, it's just one, and we will look to do the other one in 3 to 4 years.
It's unfortunate that it's more expensive than we had previously thought, but I presume the previous budgeted number was based on past experiences and...
Yes, sir. Like everything, the cost has gone up exponentially.
All right, thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Are there a lot of companies out there who do this, or are you limited to just a few to choose from?
Just a few. This company's actually out of Texas. They flew from Texas to bid on this job.
So my next question was going to be, they've never done work for the city before?
They have not. Staff vetted the company, and they're qualified to perform the work.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the timing, but you answered it with the mayor, so thank you.
So you said that, thank you for bringing this to our attention, and you mentioned that it's typically done every 10 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Was ours done 10 years ago, or because of the trying to get different bids, it's been a little longer than that?
It's been a little longer than that.
So we're due to have this done, because I guess as the more sludge that develops, I guess, less depth there is to the pond.
That's correct.
For the overflow. And I assume this is also standard practice for all water treatment plants?
This type of water treatment plant, the surface water treatment plant, others that were built in different areas, you can discharge directly into a river, but there's not a river close by. And so these sorts of things are put there for disposal.
For the collection of the sludge.
Correct.
And what happens to it once they dig it all up and take it away? Do you know?
They used to use it on farmland. It's a lot of alum in it, which are caustic, which raises pH, and some farmers would want that. Regulations have been tighter, and so I believe it goes to a landfill.
Oh, okay. And then my other question was just the number of companies that do it, and it's probably one reason why the price is above budget too, is there's just not a lot of competition.
Correct.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed, for the information you presented. I had a question. The last time that were both basins drained last time, or was it the opposite of the one that's being done this time?
The last time this was done, it was both.
So how far would that put the one that's not being done for this year?
It needs to be done soon, but once we clean one, we can route all of the water to that one, and that'll give us some time to be able to budget to remove the other.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, so you say the money's in the contingency fund that we have in the utility department?
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions?
So I move that City Council award the bid and authorize the city manager to execute the contract for the removal and disposal of residuals from the lagoon at the City of Williamsburg's water treatment plant with Stage 3 Separation LLC for $361,075.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, item B is consideration and action regarding replacing the revised project development agreement for a long-term water supply between the City of Newport News and the city for a bulk water purchase agreement. Mr. Reed, looks like you're going to be here a while today.
Yes, sir.
It's the Reed Day.
We came to you last month and presented a new agreement with Newport News to supply the city with treated and untreated water. Our previous agreement went into effect in 2009 and provided for 2 million gallons a day. The term was from 2009 to 2050, and the cost of the deal was $12.5 million that we paid in 2009, with an additional payment due in 2024. The cost of the second payment would have been $12.5 million, with the annual building cost index increase making the second payment $18 million. If the city had elected to forego the second payment, we would have been entitled to 1 million gallons a day of treated or untreated water moving forward. Williamsburg City Council and the City of Newport News elected to extend the agreement for 1 year to give both localities an opportunity to develop a more advantageous agreement for both parties. So today, the terms of the new agreement include 1 million gallons a day that we previously purchased. This would also include an additional 3 million gallons a day of treated water available for bulk purchase at Newport News Waterworks industrial rate of $4.29 per 1,000 gallons. There is no upfront costs, so that provides the city extensive savings, and this term would be from 2025 to 2050 with the ability to extend another 25 to 50 years. Staff recommends that the council authorize the city manager to execute the bulk water purchase agreement with the City of Newport News and the City of Williamsburg.
Well, thank you. So if we purchase water from Newport News, this will be treated water. So does that go right into our lines, or does it go into the lake and then we continue to filter it, or?
The treated water would go directly into our system.
Is there an opportunity to purchase untreated water?
We still have the 1 million gallons we purchased previously. Newport News was not excited about selling more untreated water. They preferred this deal, as did we. I think it's a better deal overall.
So the first million gallons a day could be untreated if at the time we need it, we decide to take it.
Right.
Well, I appreciate all the work that we've done on this. I know we've been considering this upcoming agreement for a number of years and doing research and analysis on how best to move forward, and certainly over the last I don't know how many months you and Mr. Trivett have been negotiating with Newport News for this agreement, but I think we've ended up in a great place when you consider that we purchased the first million for $12 million, and we never once used it.
Correct.
So now this new agreement gives us access to an additional 3 over that 1 million, and it doesn't cost us anything up front, but we have to purchase it at their bulk rate. So in the event of an emergency, it will cost us a little bit more than might have otherwise if we had put $12 million up. So I think accepting this $4.29 per 1,000 gallons, if it ever comes to fruition that we need it, versus paying $12 million or $18 million that was in the original contract, is an outstanding outcome for the city. And so I applaud both you and Mr. Trivett for the work that you've done. And as I said last month, I think it says a lot about the relationship that Mr. Trivett has with the current Newport News city manager and the relationships that you have with the folks over there in the waterworks. So thank you for your due diligence in getting us to this point. So I appreciate that. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Reed. We discussed the details of this last month, but just appreciate again all the hard work that went into not only saving us money, but making sure that we have some stability in our water system for years to come. The only question I have, when it says the term is up to 2050, is there anything in the contract that allows them to come back and cost of everything goes up and come back to us and ask for additional money?
Well, we pay the industrial rate, whatever it is at that current time. And so that industrial rate is subject to change over the years. But no, there's not, both parties can mutually agree to cancel the contract, but they can't come back and change the terms of the contract unless we both agree.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And we went through this last month and got the details. And so, again, this just seems like a very good outcome. It was very uncomfortable thinking of having to spend millions and millions and millions of dollars for something we have never had to use, even what we paid the first time around millions of dollars for. So this does make a lot more sense. I do have a question about maybe the practicalities of if we ever did have to pull the lever on such a thing. How far, when we think of like an emergency, right? It talks about like an emergency, and if we need something, then and over the 1 million, then we hit this panic button. And you think of emergencies as things that happen just immediately. Well, I would think in water, like projecting water needs, I would hope that, we wouldn't all of a sudden wake up one morning and be like, we need 2 million gallons of water today. But I guess if there's some sort of catastrophic breakage or something, perhaps. But could you help me understand how far out, right, would we know, for example, that we're going to have to pull the emergency lever, and what might those circumstances look like? And the reason I'm asking is because, just for us to understand, maybe be able to plan if there's money that we're going to have to spend, or is this truly something that I'm wrong and we could wake up one morning and realize we need, 2 million more gallons of water?
Two scenarios that could happen is a large water main break. In that instance, the plant can essentially ramp up and create and produce more water more quickly, and we should be able to address those issues in that scenario. Outside of that, if there was a drought, we have time. And we have trigger points where once the reservoir gets to a certain level, we start drawing from Newport News, which is what we would do. We would draw the raw water first. We average 3 million gallons a day. A good basic number is 1 million gallons a day can provide for just over 3,000 homes. And so as that water level comes down, if it's a very, very bad drought and we are using all of the 1 million gallons of raw water, we would then look for the treated water to supplement. All of that, having gone through droughts, yes, we have time to, and we have those procedures in place of once it gets to this point, we need to make a phone call.
Okay, I think that that's just really important, for us to recognize that in part of this is that emergencies can look different ways. We can kind of sometimes see them coming and sometimes, we can't. And in either situation, or even something along the spectrum, it sounds to me that this agreement, really does cover what we would need without us having to spend millions of dollars for something that we may never have to use. So thank you very much for all the work that I know that you put into this.
Just to follow up on that, one of the things that we would do if we knew that there was a drought, I mean, we could implement water restrictions and do those types of things before we find ourselves having to draw any additional water. So, thank you.
Right, and thank you. And I was just going to say, in the past years, back to 2009, we have experienced different levels of drought in the city, and never having had to utilize that water, we have been able to come up with other means, or people rationing on their own, or yard usage of water and watering, things like that. So, and I agree with Stacy. Obviously, there's different kinds of emergencies. The drought is one. I think Richmond has seen their own level of water emergency, and so being able to recognize the different trigger points and time that would be needed is very important. But I think, like we talked last month, this is a great agreement, and thanks to you and Mr. Trivett for working on it, and I think it's of the benefit to the city and all of the residents. So glad to support it.
Ms. Williams?
Yes, I have no further questions, but wanted to take a moment to thank you, Mr. Reed, and also Mr. Trivett for working with Newport News and compiling this agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, is there a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the bulk water purchase agreement between the City of Newport News and the City of Williamsburg.
Second.
Ms. McKay, could you call the roll?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, since we still have you, Jack, let's talk about the consideration and action regarding the solid waste collection contract with the City of Williamsburg.
Republic has been our residential curbside trash service provider for the city for the last 10 years. Our current contract with Republic will end at the end of this fiscal year. Due to satisfactory service the last 10 years, we are proposing to extend our agreement with Republic by utilizing cooperative language with Fairfax County. This contract would run for a term of 1 year, starting July 1, 2025, with the option of 4 additional one-year extensions. The cost would be $16.12 per household per month, which is a 4.9% increase from last year, but a 5% increase in cost was accounted for in the fiscal 2026 budget. Staff recommends that City Council authorize the city manager to execute contracts with Republic Service to continue providing curbside trash service to the city.
Thank you. Is this a different contractor than the recycling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that we do that with a separate contract? Okay. Yeah, I think by and large, we don't have any complaints about Republic, and they seem to pick up mostly on the days that they're supposed to. Just get them to put it down, put the bin down without tossing it in my yard. Okay, well, thank you. I don't have any questions. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, just one question, Mr. Reed. So I know you looked at this, where is Republic's increase compared to the other companies that are out there that offer this service?
We're in line. We're actually cheaper than Fairfax County. They gave us a rate that was more appropriate for our city, and we're in line with our neighbors.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you. I guess this is sort of on the same sort of vein. Was there any thought to putting it out for bid again, and like kind of your thought process and looking at, like, let's stick with what we have?
This is another one where there's not a lot of service providers out there, and if you have one that's a solid service provider, you generally want to stick with them. And to be perfectly honest, the logistics of collecting 5,000 trash cans and putting out 5,000 more is not a fun process.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
In my experience, they're actually pretty solid. In other localities that I've worked, they can be more difficult to deal with.
Yeah, and I would say, I see, this is within, you know, what was budgeted and, you know, under the 5%. So it makes sense. I was just curious as if that was sort of part of your thinking and calculation.
We would look at it again in January.
Yeah.
And we may put it up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for this, and just personally, I agree with their service. Many times I don't need to put my trash can out, because if I've been out of town and the driver will stop and come to my little enclosure and check my trash can to be sure that I haven't forgotten, so that means a lot to me. Just one, I separate my bins too, so it's easy for them to pick it up.
Maybe I need to take some lessons.
But anyway, so it says that we have an option of 4 additional years at 1-year intervals. So I assume at each of those intervals, they will present a new quote to us, and at that time, depending upon what it is and how much, I mean, we don't have a cap built in at this point for any increase.
Not a cap, but they've been very good about getting to us in our budget time to where, like I said, January timeframe, if it looks like it's too high or it doesn't look appropriate, we would put it out to bid.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you again for the information. I had one question just in regards to the increase. Just out of curiosity, does this increase stem for the new language within the contract or just inflation or other measures?
It's inflation. It's inflation for us specifically versus the new contract.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, is there a motion to approve?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Republic Services utilizing cooperative language with Fairfax County's agreement for a term starting July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, with the option of 4 additional years at 1-year intervals starting at the date of execution of the original contract.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Reed, consideration and action regarding the emergency, wrong one. Consideration and action regarding the solid, no, we did that one. Here we go.
Non-emergency utility.
Yeah. Non-emergency utility service contract with the city of Williamsburg.
Yes, sir. This is the last one. When repairs or new construction of underground utilities exceed our staff capabilities, the city will utilize contractors for support. Historically, when emergencies occurred, staff has good relationships with local contractors, and they have come and helped us as we needed, but currently there's no contracts in place for utility repair. Having firms under contract will ensure we receive the support we need in an emergency. And utilizing the cooperative contract with James City County, staff recommends signing agreements with Henry S. Branscombe and JSG Corporation. Both firms have been vetted by staff. We've used both firms in the past and have good working relationships with the firms. The initial contract will be for 1 year with 4 additional optional 1-year renewals. The sum of all projects performed in a 1-year contract term shall not exceed $2 million and shall not exceed $400,000 for a single non-emergency project. All city and state procurement regulations would still apply with this agreement. Non-emergency repairs or new installations that exceed $100,000 would still come before council and need your approval before we move forward. And any emergency repairs would not commence without authorization of the city manager. Staff recommends that City Council authorize City Manager to execute contracts with Henry S. Branscombe and JSG Corporation utilizing cooperative language with James City County. If you have any questions, please let me know.
I don't have any questions, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Just so clear, the only cost is if you use the contract.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I don't think I have any questions. I was just sort of thinking, yeah, I think this is a question of like, does this change anything that you actually and your team really do, right? And the behavior of like, you know, this is when we would call regarding a non-emergency or an emergency type project. So this isn't, if I'm understanding correctly, right, this isn't designed to increase or decrease or whatever impact, like when you would make the call. What the difference is, as I understand it, is that with the contract, then the company that you call would in fact be contractually obligated to respond. As if I understand then, that currently, when you call, it's possible that they could just not be able to assist or something along that lines. Okay.
Part of it would be a force multiplier. We'd be able to get more done in more time, or in less time. But primarily, to give you an example, some gravity sewers within the city are 30 feet deep. City staff does not have the capability to go to excavate 30 feet down and to repair those. And so in those instances, either way, we would have to call for support. And to your point, we would prefer they be contractually obligated to help us.
Okay. And then that coupled with, you know, if it's over $100,000, it's still going to come back to us and to evaluate the situation. So, okay, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. The way I look at it is sort of having this on companies on retainer.
Correct.
That if we need them, we can call on them, and they sort of have to respond, but there's no charge to us until we do need them.
Correct. Yes,
So I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I also have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council authorize the city manager to execute contracts with Henry S. Branscombe and JSG Corporation, utilizing cooperative language with James City County's agreement for the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Yes, sir.
Unless you want to do Larry's.
Larry's better.
Okay. Next item E is consideration and action regarding resolution number 25-10, updating the fire and rescue mutual aid agreement between the City of Williamsburg and the Armed Forces Experimental Training Activity.
Good afternoon, everyone, again. Thank you guys for having me up. I'm sorry to interrupt the Jack Reed show, so, but here I am nonetheless. This is a housekeeping measure. If you guys recall, last year, City Council authorized the city manager to approve the automatic aid and mutual aid agreement with the 17 localities within Hampton Roads. This is another piece where the Armed Forces Experimental Training Activity, also known as our friends and neighbors at Camp Perry, they would like to update their mutual aid agreement with us, with the City of Williamsburg. If you guys saw in your packet, the one that we're updating is from August of 1977. The city manager at the time was Frank Force, so his signature was on the existing current agreement with Camp Perry. And typically, Camp Perry, just for your awareness, they typically will backfill our fire station if all of our resources are out on a working fire or other incidents. That's their primary support for us. We've also utilized some of their assets, some of their canine dogs for specific activity. And occasionally, their medic units will come off base to help when the greater Williamsburg area is really busy. So obviously, our recommendation is for City Council to authorize the city manager to execute this agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have in terms of the mutual aid agreement and our relationship with the Armed Forces Experimental Training Activity, or Camp Perry.
Or the farm. Well, thank you. I'm often surprised when I drive by Lafayette Street Station and see a Camp Perry apparatus there, and I think it just really exemplifies the spirit of cooperation that we have, both here and going the other way, and particularly with our surrounding jurisdiction. So I certainly would support this.
Yeah, we were fortunate, I guess it's been a couple of years now, the mayor and I had the opportunity to have a tour of the base with the chief of base at the time, who was still there, and he reaffirmed his support and actually wanted to increase interaction with the localities so that they could offer support. Because for years early on, there was limited support that came off of base due to their restrictions, but he really renewed that effort to offer support to the surrounding localities, so it's good.
Yeah, I have no questions or informed comments to make on this one, yeah.
Thank you. So I never knew that that's what the official name of Camp Perry was. So a couple questions related to mutual aid. So we have this MOA. First, why do you think it took so long to update it from 1977?
I'm not quite sure. I know that just last year we had to update the one for Fort Eustis, and so I don't know if it's something within the military network that they're advocating for them to reach out to their local partners to update. I'm not quite sure, other than their fire chief said, "Hey, do you mind updating this from 1977?" And I said, "Sure, no problem."
And since we have a mutual aid agreement with them, they have one also with James City County and York County?
Yes, ma'am. They're all going through the same process right now. Yep.
And have we ever been asked to come on base to, okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of a mutual but a one-way street.
That's right. Yeah, it's they certainly have some facilities on base that they were have a fire, they would need help, and so that's one of the reasons for the mutual aid agreement. But to your question, in my tenure in Williamsburg, we've never had to respond to the base.
Of course, some of those fires could be practice fires. I mean, you never know.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, right. Thank you.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Perfect.
If there are no other questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-10, authorizing the city manager to execute the updated mutual aid agreement between the City of Williamsburg and the Armed Forces Experimental Training Activity, AKA Camp Perry.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Williams.
Aye.
Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Kernshire.
Aye.
Okay, item F is consideration and action regarding Resolution 25-09, updating the memorandum of understanding between the City of Williamsburg and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS.
Yep, so this is, again, as we kind of segues into our earlier conversation about the rave alerting system, and we initially got involved with the IPAWS capability in 2020. Our agreements are every 3 years, and so it's time for us to renew it. And the reason that IPAWS is important for our mass notification system process is that IPAWS really serves as that gateway to a lot of other alert disseminators. And it's one of the things we were talking about earlier about IPAWS is one of those things you don't have to subscribe to. This is an immediate emergency. Amber Alert very much works in the same way, if you're familiar with that. And so IPAWS is basically a pathway for us to be able to get to the emergency alert systems, the EAS, which is what comes across your radio or your TV, WIA, which is the wireless emergency alert, which is very much like an Amber Alert, NOAA weather alerts, internet-based services, and then other local systems. So it really is a gateway that ties into a lot of different communication mechanisms in order for us to be able to utilize the IPAWS, which again, in the city, we have not had to do because we've not had something of that immediate threat to need that platform. But just having the privilege to use it, we need to maintain that agreement so that we are able to use it in the future. And so Resolution 2509 is simply asking City Council to authorize the city manager to execute the agreement with IPAWS. And again, this will be every 3-year agreement that we have to update for us in order for us to utilize that system. And I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to IPAWS.
Thank you, Chief. I don't have any questions.
No questions.
I have none either.
I do have one question. Thank you for the information. Does the IPAWS system just integrate with Rave, or are they two separate entities?
It integrates with Rave. So within our drop-down menu, Ms. Williams, I would be able to click the IPAWS capability, and then it gets really complicated. We have every locality has secure credentialed keys because obviously it's a big system, and so we have to go in there. They're already front-loaded, but it's a drop-down menu. It's through Rave, and we would send it through Rave to connect to IPAWS, who would send it out.
Sounds like a very complex system.
It is a very cumbersome process, but it's very restricted. Such agreements like this are necessary.
Thank you.
Chief, thank you. I think, it's, again, a testament to, how much effort you put into making sure that our residents are aware and alert of things that may happening. So with that, is there a motion to approve?
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-09, authorizing the city manager to execute the memorandum of agreement between the City of Williamsburg and the Federal Emergency Management FEMA Integrated Public Alert and Warning System, IPAWS, Program Management Office.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Frenchco.
Aye.
Okay. Item G is consideration and action regarding proposed Resolution 25-11, amending the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Welcome, Ms. Dameron.
We have 3 grants that both the revenue and expenditure need to be appropriated. There's a state police training grant for $6,000, a state criminal alien assistant program grant that needs to be appropriated for $7,192, and that is a pass-through to the regional jail. And then a donation from the volunteer firefighters of $1,198 for some cameras.
Always good to receive money, so.
All of it, we're receiving money, and we request that you appropriate it so it can be spent.
Good. Well, thank you. I don't have any questions, but.
So I move that City Council approve Resolution 25-11 to appropriate the grants and donation revenue and related expenditures.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Frenchco.
Aye.
Okay, item H is consideration and action regarding proposed ordinance 25-07 to amend ordinances section 18-57 of chapter 11, article 3, real estate assessments, exemptions of qualified dwellings of surviving spouses and certain members of the United States Armed Forces who died in the line of duty. Ms. Shelton.
So back in the November election, there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot to expand the current real estate property tax exemption for the surviving spouses of individuals who are killed in action to a more broader category of individuals who are killed in the line of duty. This ordinance makes that amendment to the city code. The constitutional amendment passed. The General Assembly added a provision that includes individuals who died by suicide, and so that is included in our definition. There is a site on the city's finance department webpage with information about the tax exemption and an application, and that will be updated very shortly. And so our request is that you adopt the ordinance.
No questions? Any questions?
No questions.
So I move that City Council adopt proposed ordinance 25-07.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Frenchco.
Aye.
Okay, next item I is consideration and action regarding Resolution 25-08 regarding recommendations of the City Council of the City of Williamsburg for appointments to the Board of Equalization. Ms. Shelton.
So these appointments are made by the court. City Council makes a recommendation. I have requested that City Council make that recommendation in the form of a resolution. That makes it a little bit easier for us to file the pleadings that we need to for the appointment to be made. Mr. Young currently serves on the Board of Equalization, and he has agreed to continue his service if that is council's desire.
I think Mr. Young is willing to serve and has done a good job so far. I don't think they meet very often.
I think they are meeting for the first time since Mr. Green has been the assessor this year.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Shelton? Is there a motion?
So I move that City Council adopt proposed resolution 25-08.
Second.
Ms. McKay?
Ms. Williams.
Aye.
Ms. Ramsey.
Aye.
Mayor Pons.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent.
Aye.
Ms. Frenchco.
Aye.
I don't think we've had this many new items on the agenda in a long time. But that leads to our final one, which is item J, consideration and appointments to boards and commission members.
Yes.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mayor, we have a few of them.
Yep.
I move that City Council appoint Sean Dunn to the Colonial Behavioral Health Board of Directors for a 3-year term ending June 30, 2028. Reappoint Adria Van Hooser and appoint Bradford Bonney to the Economic Development Authority for 4-year terms ending June 30, 2029. Reappoint Larry Snyder to the Old Town Medical Center Board for a 2-year term ending June 30, 2027. Reappoint Bob Leak to the Williamsburg Area Arts Commission for a 3-year term ending June 30, 2028. Reappoint Robert Curry to the Williamsburg Public Art Council for a 2-year term ending June 30, 2027. Reappoint Vivian Prescott and Vivian Redcross to the Williamsburg Redevelopment and Housing Authority Board of Commissioners for a four-year terms ending June 30, 2029. Reappoint Nina Simone to the Williamsburg Regional Library Board of Trustees for a four-year term ending 2029.
Second?
Okay?
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Okay. Leads us to closed session. Do we have any closed
No
session?
closed session.
No closed session today. Then finally, adjournment. Would somebody like to make a motion?
So I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay?
Williams?
Aye.
Ramsey?
Aye.
Mayor Pons?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Dent?
Aye.
Ms. Kernscher?
Aye.
Thank you all for being here. We're adjourned.